Ben Hashmoshes. I'm sorry. A woman who experiences a discharge during Ben Hashmoshes on the 11th day of her Ziva period, either at the beginning of the Niddah period or the end of the Niddah period, or the beginning of the Ziva period at the end of the Ziva period, or on the 40th day for a male, on the 80th day for a female, and all these discharges occur during Ben Hashmoshes, these women are confused. Rabbi Yeshua said, before you rectify the foolish ones, rectify the competent ones. Zion. The blood, Zion Aleph, the blood of a niddah and the flesh of a corpse convey tuma when they are moist and when they convey tuma when they are dry. But a ziva emission, the phlegm of a zav is saliva, the saliva of a zav, a sheretz, an animal carcass, and semen convey tuma when they are moist, but they do not convey tuma when they're dry. But if they can be soaked in water and revert back to the way they were, they convey tuma when they are wet and they convey tuma when they are dry. And for how long must be soaked? They must be soaked in warm water for 24 hours. Rabbi Yossi says regarding dry flesh of a corpse that cannot be soaked and revert back to what it was, it is tahor. Regarding a sheretz that was found in an alley, it remains taharos tame retroactively until one can say, I checked this alley and there was no sheretz in it, or until this alley was last swept. And similarly, with regard to bloodstains that was found on a tunic, it conveys tuma retroactively until the time about which one can say, I checked this tunic and I did not have a bloodstain on it, or until the time it was last laundered. And it conveys tuma whether it is wet or dry. Red Shimon says one that is dry conveys tuma retroactively, but one that is wet conveys tuma retroactively only until the time that it could be reverted back to being wet. Okay.
Gimel, Kola Kasamim Habaim Merekim. Okay, so if you find a blood stain in the town of Rekem, obviously this is talking about in the time of the Mishnah, and based on so what are we learning this Mishnah for is because if you have a similar situation to Rekem, so this Rekem, this border town, had a mixture of Jews and non-Jews, but the what was the proportion to say? Right, so it's a mixture. It doesn't say anything about majority or who's in the majority or not.
Right.
So if you find a blood stain anywhere, you don't have to you assume it comes from a non-Jew, because if it was a Jewish woman's blood stain, and therefore it would be tameh. But Jewish women are careful and very particular about putting them away, washing them, making sure that they don't stay out anywhere to be matame anyone. So if you find something with a blood stain, you assume it comes from a goy, and if a blood stain from a goy is not tameh, even though goyim have midrabanan have the din of a zav. We in terms of being matame, moshav, and mishkav, but the Chazal didn't go as far as to be matame their bloodstains as well. So a bloodstained garment is considered completely tahor. Rabbi Yehuda matame mipnei shehem gerim v'toim, but he says no. He says there are a high proportion of converts in that area who are ignorant of the law. So they just follow their previous behavior patterns that they grew up with, and not being careful about blood. And now that they're Jewish, that blood is tameh. Habayim mi bein hagoyim tahorim. Now, if it comes straight among this is really just kind of repeating what we just discussed a minute ago. Is that any bloodstains that come from a non-Jewish population are considered tahor mi bein Yisrael mi bein hakutzim. And if it comes from people from Yisraelim or even from Kusim, who are at the time of the Mishnah considered valid converts, okay, Rabbi Meir Matame, Chachamim Matarin. So Rabbi Meir says if you find it from a population that's all Jewish, then you must assume that it's tameh. But Chachamim say nah, it's tahor mipnei shelo nechshedu al kismeihem, because even for Jews for sure, but even Kusim are careful about bloodstains, because remember what's the deal with Kusim? Kusim are they whatever they take on strong.
Wrong, right?
Right there, and if they when the laws of Tumah and Tara are very explicit in the Torah, they're going to follow them. It's when you come to Torah Shebal Peh that they're not so not so strong on that. Okay, but when it comes to blood, they're strict on it themselves. Um, and therefore, what we assume is that if you did find a blood stain, this is not dam niddah. It's blood from an animal or something else. Because if it was from a Jew, they would have kept it. They would have put it aside. So it comes up that according to the Chachamim, you don't ever have to worry about a bloodstained garment, because if it's from a Jew, it wouldn't have been left out. If it's from a goy, it's tahor anyway. So okay,
You said Rechem was a border town,
yes.
meaning that it wasn't in Eretz Yisrael
It
necessarily,
was on
or
the eastern border, says Kahati.
okay.
Okay. Kol hakesamim hanimtzaim b'chol makom tahorin. Okay, so as we just said, any stains that you find anywhere are considered tahor. Chutz min hanimtzaim b'chadarim. However, if it was found in a private room inside the house, then you've got to be a little bit more suspicious, because that is, you went into a place where things could have been stashed away. Or besvivos beis hatumos, or in the locale of a beis hatumos, which Kati explains is or beis hatmeos, which is a room that women use at the time that they're niddah. Okay, and then if you find a blood-stained garment inside there, then you must assume that the blood is also tameh, because that is where people would put these things away. Beis hatumos shel kusim metam'in ba'ohel. And furthermore, if you have one of these Beis hatumos chambers in the house of a kuti, then not only do you have to worry about the stain itself being tameh as a blood stain, you also have to worry that it could be a prematurely aborted fetus, which they just sort of said, okay, well, let's just bury it over here. So it's
Right.
the ohel even. Mipnei she'en kovrim sham esen nefalim. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, lo hayu kovrim ela mashlichin v'chaya gorartan. Rabbi Yehuda says, nah, the kusim would not, if they'd had a miscarriage, why would they take the trouble of burying it inside the house? Just throw it outside. I mean, they didn't. The thing with the kusim is that they didn't hold that a fetus was matame ba'ohel. Otherwise, they wouldn't be burying it inside their own house.
Right.
Okay, but why bother digging something inside your own house when you could just throw it on the garbage heap? They don't treat it as any kind of a body. They just say, okay, it's a bloody mess. They throw it on a garbage heap, and the animals will drag it away. So it's saying that their lack of care actually turns out to be a kula, because that means that they're just treated as regular garbage and throw it out, and animals would drag it away. So in which case you don't have to worry about any or tumas or hell, at least in their houses. Okay. Mishna talking about the kutim again. Now, an important thing to remember before we dive into this Mishnah is that the kutim take a literal understanding of everything that's in the Torah Shebichtav. Okay, they don't hold by Torah Shebal Peh, and so one of the critical things that comes out of this is that we have a mitzvah of lifnei iver lo titein michshol. You are not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of the blind. The kutim, we understand that to mean that you cannot cause somebody else to sin. So if somebody else asks you, is this meat kosher? And you know it's not kosher, you have to tell them, no, it's not kosher, because it's on you. You have to make sure that they don't do an avera. The kutim believe that means that if there's a blind person walking along the road, you're not allowed to put a block in front of him and say, ha, 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 that was funny. Okay, so
Right.
so you cannot trust a kuti for yourself. You have to watch his behavior to see what he does, and then only then can you rely on him if that's even a mitzvah that he holds. If it's a mitzvah that he doesn't hold by at all, then forget about it. You can't trust him, not what he says, not what he does. Okay, so now let's see that inside the Mishnah. Nemanim lomar kavarnu sham esen nefalim. If the kuti says, yeah, that's the place where we buried the miscarried babies. Okay, then you said, okay, in other words, there and nowhere else. Or lo kavarnu, we did not bury them over here. But again, this is only in a case where you see a Kohen who's, well, no, hang on, you couldn't have a Kusi Kohen because they're converts. Um, but somebody who acts, um, is there a Kohen? I suppose it's possible if in the second generation. So if you have a Kuti whose daughter a Kuti married a Israel and their daughter married a Kohen. So now the grandchild is now a Kohen, but
Right.
let's say he's following after he's following the traditions of his mother's side. Okay, so if you had such a thing with this Kohen, this Kuti Kohen
Right.
is um, is eating truma inside this place. So obviously he holds that he's tahor. So if you see him acting in a way that he's confident that this is tahor, then you can trust that okay, this place is tahor.
No.
Ne'emanim lomar ala behema im bikra. Also, you trust them about a behema if it's already had a firstborn, because the laws of the firstborn are also explicit in the Torah. Im lo or im lo bikra. If you say this is a bechor or it's not a bechor, we can trust them. But again, only if we see them acting in accordance with what they're saying. Nemanim al tzion kvaros. We trust them with the marking of graves. But we don't trust them when it comes to overhanging branches, because the kusim don't hold by overhanging branches spreading ohel tumah. So even if you see a kuti walking under the tree and saying no, it's tahor over here, you can't trust him because he doesn't hold that lahalacha. The law al Beis Pras, and also Beis Pras is a din drabanan, so they don't hold by it at all. So you can't say, no, that's fine to walk here. No, this is if we hold it to Beis Pras, then you can't trust him. Zaklal, your general rule is davar shechashudim bo, any mitzvah that we don't trust him on, ein nemanim alav, and therefore we can't if they don't hold it for themselves, then for sure we don't trust them to give eidos about
But they don't hold anything that's Rabbanim then.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hey, base. If a Kohen was eating truma and he felt that his limbs were trembling, he grabs the male organ and he swallows the truma. These discharges contaminate in any amount, that even an amount equal to a mustard seed, and even an amount less than that. An infant girl who is 1 day old can become tummy by discharging Niddah blood, and a girl who is 10 days old can become tummy by discharging Ziva blood. An infant boy who is 1 day old can become tummy by emitting Ziva fluid. Furthermore, he can become tummy by contracting Saharas afflictions. He can become tummy from a corpse. He binds for Yibum and he releases from Yibum. He causes others to eat truma and he disqualifies others from eating truma. I'm sorry, I skipped something here. He inherits and bequeaths one who kills him is liable, and he to his father, his mother, and all his relatives like a full-fledged bridegroom. A girl who's 3 years old and 1 day old can be betrothed through cohabitation, and if her yibum cohabitates with her, he acquires her. Furthermore, one who's liable on account of her for committing adultery with a married woman. She causes one who cohabitates with her to become tummy to the degree that he will render a bottom couch as tummy as that which is on top. If she is fully married to a kohen, she may be truma, and if one of the disqualified men cohabitates with her, he disqualifies her from the kahuna. And if any of the arayos, forbidden partners mentioned in the Torah, cohabitates with her, he is put to death because of her, but she is not liable for the punishment. Cohabitation with a girl younger in age than this is like poking a finger in the eye.
Okay. Because
okay, base Gimel. There are cases of doubt pertaining to drawing water that the sages declared tahor. There's a doubt whether it fell into the mikvah or whether it did not fall. Or alternatively, even if it definitely did fall, and there is a doubt whether it was 40 sar in the mikvah or whether it was not. Alternatively, there were 2 mikvahs, one containing 40 sar and one the other not, and it fell into one of them, but he does not know into which one it fell. These doubtful cases are adjudged tahor because there is something on which to depend. But if they each contain less than 40 saw, and when it fell into one of them and it does not know into what it fell, this doubtful case is adjudged tamei because there's nothing to depend on. Reb Eliezer says one riba says raw water disqualifies a mikveh at the beginning, and 3 lugim went on the surface of the water. But the Chachamim say both at the beginning and at the end the amount is 3 lugim. If a mikveh has 3 hollows, each containing 1 log of drawn water, when it is known that 40 saw valid water already fallen into the mikveh before they reach the 3rd hollow, it is valid, and otherwise it's invalid. Shimon declares it's valid because it's like one mikveh next to another mikveh.
Okay.
Okay. And the Gayim. Zion Aleph. The following are Baharos that are Tahor. Baharos that a person had before the Torah was given, that were on a Gentile who converted, or on a newborn child, or on a folded skin that became revealed, on the head of a beard, on a raw boil, burn, or wound, literally a boil, or on a burn, or a wound on the rebellious ones. If the head or the beard then became bald, and the boil, the burn, and the wound became partially healed, they're Tahor. A necker appeared on the head of the beard before it grew hair. Then it grew hair. It subsequently became bald, and the boil became bald, or a boil, burn, or wound that did not get scabbed, and the scab formed, and the boil, burn, or wound healed. If Eliezer says, Ben Yaakov renders these cases tamei, since they began and ended as tamei, and the common rendered them tahor. Their appearance changed either leniently or stringently, and how leniently? If it was like snow, it became like the lime of the sanctuary. Like white wool, it became, or like egg membrane, or became a secondary shade from a cyst, or became a secondary shade from an intense white. How stringently it was like a white egg membrane and became white wool, like the lime of the sanctuary, or like snow. Eliezer ben Azariah renders it tahor, and Eliezer ben Kisma says if it is changed leniently, it is tahor, and if it changed stringently, it must be examined anew. Rabbi Kiva says whether it changed leniently or stringently, it must be examined anew. The Kohen should confine a Baharis that has nothing inside it either initially, or at the end of the first week, or at the end of the second week, or after the nega has become tahor, he should make it tahor. If it was still confining it and declaring it tahor when it develops symptoms of tumah, he should confirm it. The Kohen should confirm a Baharis that has symptoms of tumah inside it. If it was still confirming it when the symptoms of tumah appeared, or initially at the end of the first week, or confines it, or at the end of the second week, or after the nega has become tahor, he should make it tahor. Okay. And we are on to the chorus. Okay. Above Zion. It is 5-legged, or if it is 5-legged or only has 3, or its feet are round like that of a donkey, and the shackle or the castle. What is a shackle? One whose hip is dislocated, and a castle, an animal whose hip is higher than the other. The bone of its foreleg, the bone of the hind leg was broken, all that is not discernible. The aforementioned blemishes were enumerated by Ayala in Yavna, and the sages concurred with him. He also added another 3, but they said to him, "We have not heard of these." These are the circle of its eye is round like that of a man, or its mouth resembles that of a pig, or the greater part of the foretongue is gone. However, subsequent Din said these are indeed blemishes. It happened that the lower jaw of an animal protruded upon its upper jaw, and Rabbi Shem Gamil said to the sages, and they said it is a blemish if a kid's ear was doubled. The sages say in the instance that it is one body, it is a blemish, but if not one body, it's not a blemish. When Kaninya ben Gamil says a kid's tail that resembles that of a pig, or tail does not have 3 vertebrae, it is a blemish. Kanina ben
So
Tikmel
that's
says
it.
it
We're
has.
done.
Oh, done. Okay.
Yeah. Getting.
Okay. Dalet Aleph. If one sent to get to his wife and encountered the agent
No,
was
it's
sent
a base. We're in base.
base, I'm sorry. Originally, he would convert in court elsewhere and nullify it. Rabbi Gamil the elder decreed that they should not do this for the sake of the general good. Originally, he would change his name and her name, the name of his town and the name of her town. But Rabbi Gamil the elder decreed that he write the man so and so in any name he has, the woman so and so in any name she has, for the sake of the general good. A widow is not paid from the property of orphans except with an oath. They cease from imposing an oath upon her. So Rabbi Gamil said the elder decreed that he should make a neder prohibiting whatever the orphans wish and collect a ketubah. Witnesses sign on a get for the sake of the general good. Hillel decreed the pros both for the sake of the general good. A slave who was taken captive and they redeemed him, he is to be a slave. He shall be subjected to being a free man. He shall not be subjugated. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says in either case he must be subjugated. A slave whose master designated him as a payment for a debt to another and then freed him By right of law, the slave should not be liable at all, but for the sake of the general good, they compel his master to free him, and he writes a bond for his value. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says he does not write, only the one who freed him. Okay.
Okay.
And we have Shabbos. We are on Yud Aleph Aleph. One who throws from a private domain to a public domain.
Hold on. Oh, yes, you're right. Yud Aleph Aleph. Correct.
One who throws from a private domain to a public domain or from a public domain to a private domain is liable. One who throws from a private domain to another private domain and a public domain lies in between, Rabbi Akiva holds him liable and the common exempt him. In what manner? Two balconies, one opposite the other. In a public domain, one who hands over or throws from one to the other is exempt. If both were in one row, one who hands over is liable, whereas one who throws is exempt. For such was the work of the Levites. They were two wagons, one behind the other in a public domain. They would hand over the boards from one to the other, and they would not throw them. The bank of a cistern or a rock that are 10 handbreadth high or 4 handbreadth wide, one who takes an article from them or places an article upon them is liable. In less than these dimensions, he is exempt. One who throws an article of a distance of 4 cubits against a wall above 10 tefachim from the ground, as it is though he is throwing it in the air. Below 10 tefachim from the ground, it is though he is throwing on the ground. One who throws an article at a distance of 4 cubits on the ground is liable, and if one threw to a point within 4 cubits, if it rolled beyond 4 cubits, he's exempt. And if he threw beyond 4 cubits, then it is rolled back to him within 4 cubits, he's liable.
Okay.
Okay, I hope we have a minute or two. I have a kashrut question for you.